Guys, good Tuesday morning. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk, an insider's guide to real estate life and the pursuit of happiness. We are live in Charlottesville, across the Commonwealth, country, and the world on the I Love CVille Network. We are presented by Keller, Williams Alliance, and yes, Realty Partners. Keller Williams Alliance and yes, Realty Partners, just brands and people and organizations that you can trust and count upon. Judah Wickower is our fabulous director. He will grace us with his brain power and presence. Ray Cadell, welcome to the program. Agents, get ready to participate and join us in the discussion because we have a man with tremendous intellect and always something to say on set, and that is Quinton Beckham.
Those don't necessarily always go together.
They do. You're well-read, you're versatile, you're well-traveled. You usually do always have something to say, and frankly, you're fantastic in a talk show setting because of all those personality traits. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm really excited this morning. I had hot water.
Oh, wow.
Yesterday, cold
It was
shower.
cold, yeah.
And it was a really cold shower. It wasn't just like lukewarm. It was icy. Today I had hot water, and I'm sitting here with coffee.
And we noticed clean shaven, Quinton Beckham.
Yes, well, I couldn't shave with the ice water yesterday.
I know. They had a little 5 o'clock shadow on the Monday edition of Real Talk.
Which it takes me 3 days to get. It takes me 3 days to get to 5 o'clock.
It takes me about half a day to get the 5 o'clock shadow. Then we have Judah Wickower over here with the beard extraordinaire, always looking sharp. He's our director. So, Quinton Beckham, my friend, how is life? How are things going for you?
Gosh, compared to yesterday, this is awesome. You know, not that I had much to complain about yesterday.
Yeah, you had it good yesterday.
When you think of what's going on in the world, you know, I should probably limit my complaints. No, it's been really good. The conference in Orlando was fun. It was fun to travel. I drove, took a nice road trip back and forth in my electric vehicle, which was a lot of fun. I always enjoy road trips. Had podcasts lined up and a book on tape and completely on my own, so I could go when and where I please. That was a lot of fun.
The Cynthia McNary, welcome to the program on LinkedIn. The electric vehicle purchase you made is looking even more on point and intelligent as gasoline is escalating. Russia-Ukraine is certainly not helping. And Quinton, I filled up my Explorer this morning, Ford Explorer, $62, Judah Wickower.
For how many gallons of gas?
I believe it's 17, I want to say.
What would that have cost a month ago?
I mean, here's the thing. When I purchased the Explorer, it was in the midst of the pandemic at the time when car prices did not go bananas. Mm-hmm. So this was July 2020 is when I purchased it. And that's when the car manufacturers and dealers were begging people to purchase cars. And that's when it was...
and gas stations were begging people to buy gas.
Dude, it was like $1. I don't know the exact number, but it was like $1.50. Now we're looking at like $3.60, $3.70 and change QB and Judah Wickower. $60+ to fill up the Explorer QB.
I want to say I was looking at this morning because I was trying to look up things to sound smarter while talking here. And I want to say that year over year gas prices, the mid-range, are $1 higher than they were February of last year and 20 cents higher than they were a week ago.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. It sounds, you know, we like to throw out these numbers that don't sound like a lot because it's 20 cents a gallon, 10 cents on the tax, real estate tax we were just talking about. They don't sound like a lot until you start adding them up.
Yeah, it's like, you know what it reminds me of? It's like my wife and I were talking about this. We cut the cord and dropped cable, and then we're like, we're going to do live streaming. And now we have a Prime membership. We have a Netflix membership. We got a Peacock membership, the NBC affiliate. We got a Showtime. We got an HBO. We got a Paramount Plus. And by the time you add up these $4.99 a month, you're basically at what Comcast was for traditional cable. So it adds up. So I think it's the show is Real Talk, life pursuit, real life pursuit of happiness. You know, real talk here. And this is something we're talking about.
And I think you might not realize it, but you bring up an interesting point when we are talking about going into times of inflation. we're talking about more expensive cost of living. There are so many things that sort of vampire-like suck away our money that we have to sit down and pay attention to, because back when I was young, you had to write checks or hand over cash, and so you physically were a process of every expense. And now it just sort of floats out of your bank account month by month by month in ways that are hard to keep track of. And
Right.
you look up and your bank account's $1,000 less, and it's because of 8 or 9 things, not one big expense.
Neil Williamson is watching on Twitter. Are you on Twitter? Is Quinton Beckham on Twitter?
I have an account on Twitter, yes.
Do you know your handle by chance so I can tag you in this post from Neil?
Shoot, no.
Okay, so Neil Williamson's offering, this looks like an inflation chart. I'm going to relay this live on air from the king of content, Neil Williamson, who's offering perspective like he always does, valuable perspective. I just retweeted it for those that are watching, twitter.com/Jerry Miller Now, my handle Jerry Miller Now. He says the 18-month average retail price chart for gasoline. This is 18 months. Judah, are you ready for this? Quinton, are you ready for this?
I see it, gasbuddy.com.
So September 1, 2020. September 1, 2020. Are you ready for this? Below $2.20. March 1, 2022. So this is what, roughly 18 months later. $3.63. We're talking a difference of $1.40, call it $1.40 for the sake of a talk show. $1.40 with my tank of gas, having 17 gallons, $1.40 times 17 QB in Judah, is an extra $23.80 every time I fill up. $23.80. And that's over 18 months. I mean, $23.80.
And you're going to, and you have to fill up.
You
don't
have to fill
have
up?
an option. Yeah.
What
you
can
don't have
we
an
do for
option.
that? What would you do for $23.80? Have a couple of cocktails at the Shichetti bar at Tavila?
That would cover 2, I think.
Yeah? That would cover
before
two.
tip.
Before tip?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, what would you, Judah Whitcower's about to jump in. What would you do with $23.80 extra a week?
Eat a little better, maybe?
I mean, the question you got to ask, how does this impact, Christopher Eagle, hello, how does that impact Charlottesville in Central Virginia?
Well, certainly, we've talked a whole lot about drive till you can buy. And that drive just got more expensive. So if you are having to travel, how does that balance out for you? And do you have remote options that make it easier? Do you have an opportunity to switch out cars, which is really hard to do right now? Easy to sell your used car, hard to get the new one. And there wasn't there the ship that just burned and sank into the sea with all the Lamborghinis?
Expensive cars on it. I saw that.
Correct. And so that seems to be taking longer. I have a good friend that ordered a car, and I want to say it was just January when he ordered it. They're telling him a June delivery date, but it started out with, end of April, and now it was middle of May, and now we're into June. So I'm curious to see how everybody weathers this.
Dude, it's no surprise that yesterday, I don't know if you saw this, but yesterday, Tesla, Elon Musk, electric vehicle extraordinaire, his stock popped big time yesterday. So as the gasoline prices escalate, the priority of electric vehicles is going to become even more on the tip of people's tongues here. So I mean, A, does this drive even more market share to electric vehicles? B, does it soften the real estate in the outer counties, Buckingham, Waynesboro, Shenandoah Valley, the outskirts of Louisa? C, what is this going to do from a gentrification standpoint with members in the community that were already struggling and living paycheck to paycheck? And D, how does it influence policymakers with their decision making on certain tax escalations?
Yeah, that's like a whole degree, all those questions.
A lot to unpack there, QB.
That's an entire degree. I do think, sitting on electric vehicles for a second, you talked about me making a smart move to buy an electric vehicle. And I just want everybody to know this was totally an impulse buy for something that I thought was pretty and went fast and was fun, because I'm like that with cars. I'm pretty sedate in other areas of my life, but with cars, I like having new cars. So that's why I bought it.
He's a car aficionado.
But it's worked out to have some advantages when we had our small self-created lack of gasoline supply and huge lines. I got to drive past those. I've been to a gas station in over 2.5 years, and I don't mind it. And have taken multiple road trips that are 600, 700, 800 miles in my electric vehicles, and there's actually quite a few places to stop and charge. It's very much not as onerous as it sounds, so it's become a really good option. Now, I think if we're talking logically, is there a place for EVs in the ongoing change in the world? Yeah, there is. There's a lot of affordable, more practical, everyday kinds of folks that just need a car to go to their construction site. You've got the F-150 Lightning coming out. You've got a lot of those options. And you wake up every day with it plugged into your house and 3/4 of the way full or 80% full, and that can carry you for days, and you just plug it in at night. You never have to stop.
Well said. And it's a conversation we're having with in our family. The next one should be an EV purchase of some kind. Bill McChency says $23.80 is dinner at Tip Top for 2 people. Even depending on what you order, potentially with tip, if you're going the pizza route or the sandwich route. Wild Bill McChency of Charlottesville. Daniel Pettit says, and Jerry, Peacock is owned by Comcast, so they're getting your money anyway.
One way or the other.
Very, very good call, Real Estate 3's Dan Pettit. This is what I want to throw to you, and I very much respect your opinion, as you know. Does the work from home opportunity, working from an ISP at home, is that going to potentially counterbalance the obscene inflation and discretionary income pressures that locals are feeling from government, from gas, from groceries, from household goods, and from increased real estate assessments and potentially tax rate increases?
So I have an answer, but I do want to separate some things. So,
Please.
Tax rates and whatnot, probably not under the umbrella of inflation, because those are things we have a choice about.
That's policy.
That's policy.
Yeah.
Mortgage rates are also not inflation because they're dealing with goods that you might buy and sell, but they have an effect on it. And then you have actual inflation. And inflation is usually less goods or services for the same price or more expensive. If you go to a hotel nowadays, and I've had experience with this, you might not get housekeeping every day. There may or may not be food in the morning.
Fresh towels.
There's no more room service. There's a lot of these things, and yet the price doesn't come down. So sort of a shrinkflation. You're getting less for the same amount of money. It's not like they reduced it. And they have good reasons for doing it, so I'm not trying to diss anybody. So I think those are some of the things that we walk into in the discretionary spending talk of inflation. I think where you're going to see things really affect people in terms of their employment, home life, and their geographic choices are the non-discretionary stuff. I was mentioning yesterday, I went to Giant, I bought 2 bags of groceries for myself. It's just me, it's not a whole lot of food. It was $165 for 2 not very large bags of groceries.
What were in those grocery bags?
Filet
mignons?
There was some meat in there, yes.
Okay.
But it was
bacon?
It was still $165.
That's a lot of money.
And I was looking at Mr. Gillikin's feed.
Yeah.
And he laid out his $130 trip to the grocery store in a picture that was also not a ton of stuff.
Right.
So inflation's going to happen to a degree. You're going to complain about how much it fills up your gas tank, but odds are you can afford to fill up your gas tank and continue to drive back and forth and get to the places you need to go. I'm concerned about folks that we have that are lower on the mean income bracket.
The financial margin.
Have, 2 to 4 children that they need to feed and take care of. Both parties of the household are working, and how much closer that pushes them to what we might think of as brittle poverty or closer to homelessness.
Yeah.
And housing issues.
That's the big heart, the empathy of the man. A good example of this, we had a plumber in our house yesterday. We're going to a tankless water heater. Mm-hmm. Okay? Finally, our 18-year-old water heater started leaking and went, is the word kaput?
Yeah.
Kaput?
Yeah.
Kaput.
It went
good word for
kaput.
it.
Okay? So instead of going with the big tank that utilizes propane to heat up the water, we're going with a tankless electric water heater that's a little bit more money that we will then make up because we're not utilizing propane. We're utilizing electric. Propane's expensive now, and it opens up some more spot in the basement for us as well. So we're very excited about this. We're chatting with the plumber. The plumber puts it in perspective like this. My wife and I both work. The place we can afford is Barbersville. It's a 1,300 square foot home. We have 6 children, and we are both commuting to Charlottesville and Albemarle County. Well, he's going everywhere because he's a plumber. She's commuting to Charlottesville for work, and he's driving everywhere. 6 kids. And he says when the gas goes up, he's got a van for work, and he has to fill up. He literally says he has less take-home pay at home on his way to and from Barbersville to service his clients and go back to the house. He's literally explaining to us how he feels the pinch and the pain. And this gets back to an email that we discussed about an actual economic item called inflation expectation.
Inflation expectation. I wanted to add on to your story from the plumber too. When you think of the number of gig workers we have in their own vehicles, Uber, Lyft, Instacart, DoorDash, Grubhub, there are folks that make the majority of their income, or the income that makes the difference between being able to pay the bills and don't, are now going to feel this in a really direct way. In some cases, one that I was talking to is talking about giving up her side gig at Instacart because she's not sure that she isn't losing money
Right?
with the gas prices how they are.
Explain that.
Because what she gets paid. She doesn't get any extra stipend. She's really dependent on people tipping. And there's a variety of levels of tipping, depending on what people are able and willing to do. And yet she's still paying more out of her pocket for every trip. So her intrinsic costs went up. And there she is. So she's contemplating giving it up because the car she drives, where she can load 4 trips in the back and drive it once, is not the most fuel efficient. Can't afford a new one right now, particularly with car prices. And it might be actually better for her budget to stop the extra work.
I mean, did you hear that, Judah? That right, how do you're empathetic to it, but that plight is almost demoralizing.
It's demoralizing if you have to stop being subject to everything that's going on around you. And I'm not saying that as a dig, but I've been poor and I've had money, and I would rather have money. And I can remember a period of life where I had almost no money. I had literally 2 jobs, more bills than I had income, and this was back when you got bills in the mail, which I know we don't anymore, but I would pay all the red bills because those were the ones that were like, we're going to cut you off, and the rest got lost until they either turned red or I found extra money. And the first year of living that way, I really felt like everything was out of my control. And after a year of that, realized that I had to start making my own differences in things. So how we eat, making a budget, because if you keep track of what you spend, you're automatically going to do better. You just talked about how you cut the cord to cable and you're spending as much or more with all of the cable-free things that you're doing.
And it's almost not even as convenient as the cable.
And it is less convenient.
It's less convenient.
It's less convenient.
Yeah.
But more importantly, if somebody is living in Barbersville with 6 kids, what do they have to have? What is the best internet price, and are they keeping track of it? If you have a budget that will help you guide your grocery spending, not some of the cheaper things in the world are things that we might not typically think about when we go to the grocery store, but lots of vegetables. Have you tried being vegetarian? It's a really inexpensive way to eat. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't throw you into diabetes that you can do to control those budgets. And just being really creative in identifying what money is being spent on and how can we reduce that. We often live the most expensive ways because it's so convenient.
Well said, Judah Wickhauer. When you're ready to jump in here with perspective, because I see that mind going, please let us know here.
Yeah.
You're ready now?
Yeah, I was just going to say that it's always cheaper to shop around the outside of the supermarket. If you look at a supermarket, the center of it is mostly boxes and plastic, and it's all, like you said, processed. So if you shop around the outside, if you shop, meat, dairy, obviously vegetables, fruits, it's always going to be cheaper than getting the box that you just, pour out, add milk or water or whatever, and stick in the oven.
Well said. Well said.
Stuff is expensive.
A perfect example of this, and it sounds like we've all, and many that are watching the program in a similar situation. I remember when, and I was talking about this yesterday with Nikki, when I was literally close to defaulting on a mortgage in my first place coming out of college at UVA over at the Vills at Southern Ridge. Had to welcome my buddies in to live with us.
Yep.
The only thing I could afford was double cheeseburgers from McDonald's and stolen food from the Panda Garden buffet. And the interesting thing is when you live, when external circumstances impact disposable income, it immediately negatively impacts health and diet, because you often then go to food, as Judah just highlighted, that is not healthy, but is cost effective and affordable. And some of those choices aren't always the best ones for you.
Well, the thing is, they're not always cost effective, because you're choosing convenience over, you can buy, meat and vegetables and cook something up and get some Tupperware, and you've got, meals for the week. But that requires you to actually plan ahead and cook and,
Correct.
and put that stuff away for the week.
And so how does inflation expectation play into this? And so one of if you are listening on any of the various feeds, I'd like you to type in an answer to a question for me. By the end of the year, do you expect inflation to go down? Do you expect it to stay the same, or do you expect it to go up? So just real quick, up, down, same. Doesn't matter by how much. And I'm curious, what is, everybody that's listening, what is your expectation of by December? Where will we be? Will we have continued to trend up? Will we be right about the same as we are now, or will we have gone down?
Inflation expectation. Do the prices go down by the end of the year, stay the same, or go up? I'm curious for you. I got stuff coming in already here from Twitter and LinkedIn that I'm going to relay on down, up, or stay the same. Keep them coming, guys. Quinton, I'm going to relay this to you. What is your take on it? Because I thought about your email, and I got to you give your take, Judah, as well. But let's let the sharply dressed Quinton Beckham go first.
So while they're giving an answer, I want to talk about inflation expectation. So one of the ways economists determine what they think inflation is going to be is they get somebody with a clipboard to wander metropolitan areas and ask 100 people what they expect. And it has rang true for 40 years now that if more than half of everybody says it's going to go up, it does. If they say it's going to go down, it does. And now we come up with what we think of as inflation expectation. What was a reasonable price? Let's suppose you've won a lot of money and you're wanting to turn it into even more money, so you decide to go into the commodities market and you're going to buy oil. What would you have paid for a barrel of oil, and you're buying futures? So a year ago, buying your barrel of oil futures, what might have been a reasonable price?
Well, in the start of the pandemic, you could have gotten paid to take a barrel of oil away. At
Correct.
The start of a pandemic.
So let's
now,
say,
what is it? What is the barrel? 100 plus?
Let's say a year ago you were buying a barrel that you would actually get today. You might have been willing to pay $65 for that barrel of oil. What are barrels of oil that people are going to get delivered a year from now going for on the market? They're going for 100.
What a 178 for WTI?
So, because we are reading into things from Ukraine, we're talking about Russia being a huge exporter of crude oil, We're worried about gas prices and all this other stuff. We think it's worth more in the future than what it's worth right now. So we're willing to pay more for it, and we create our own inflation. This is inflation expectation. Keller Williams just did a big event in Orlando, 10,000 agents that they went to. And when you have events that are 5,000, 8,000, 15,000 people, you're signing those contracts way in advance. What you're willing to pay is dependent on what you expect it's going to be worth. What they're trying to charge you is dependent on what they expect they're going to be able to do. And these are self-reinforcing loops. What we expect to happen, we make happen, and then we say, see, I told you so.
Quinton Beckham on fire right now, Judah Wickhauer. Giving props to QB for that. And Neil Williamson says the perception and reality is it's going to go up, the prices. We have Wanda, is it Shank? Am I saying your last name right? Wanda on the I Love CVille Facebook page. She says the prices are expected to be the same. Judah, I'm going to get your take here in a matter of moment. We have on Twitter from Steven saying the prices will certainly not go down, so my vote is same or go up. Do you expect the prices? Put it in the comment section. Do you expect prices on goods, on gas, to go up, to go down, or remain the same? Wanda Schenk also says Lucid electric cars slash demand outlook yesterday down 13%. It's more of a high-end electric, but outlook not good. And she says she expects prices to remain the same. So my take on this is straightforward. I don't expect the prices to go down. And I hate to say this, I think the new norm on prices at restaurants and at the grocery stores is going to be this price. Could they potentially just stay this price? Maybe, and we hope to God they do. The terrible thing is they very well could go up. And the unfortunate aspect is as legacy and traditional media continues to hammer these headlines, the expectation, as Quinton Beckham has very much identified already, is fear-driven, and it's going to get worse.
And maybe not fear, but just trying to be prepared. But I do think as we watch things unfold around us, we can sometimes create or affect our own reality based on how we behave, more so as a group than as individuals. You know, my one decision about the car I'm going to purchase probably isn't going to affect the price of cars for everybody else. On the other hand, if there's a large group of people like me, that can make a change. So there's things that are not in our control. And I am curious now from the feed, is it pretty even? We've got a couple of ups.
No one has said down.
Nobody has said down.
Not a single person has said down.
Nobody's
Judah
said down.
hasn't given his take. Your take on a three-shot here, and then we go to the feed. What is your take? Down, stay the same, or go up?
I'd say stay the same or go up. I mean, with gas prices rising, eventually, I think that might hit the supermarkets because you've got to get stuff there before you and I buy it, and if it costs twice as much than it did 2 or 3 years ago to get it there, something's got to give.
Laura says it's definitely going to go up as gas prices increase. All cost of goods rise because they have to be transported to and from places to get to the consumer. My vote is up.
Well, and petroleum products are in everything. Let's be clear. If you were to lay out gas prices along next to recessions, you will see the peak gas prices just before the recession, and it plays out true left, right, and middle, because as consumer demand for products increases, so does the demand for petroleum and petroleum products. Those things become more scarce. The price goes up, market crashes, that need goes away.
The beautiful and talented Jen Finazzo of the Finazzo family, Sal's Cafe Italia, one of the best spots in Central Virginia, Sal's Cafe Italia. She says, certainly up with summer travel tourism demand. So there's another vote for up. There's not a single vote for down yet.
No. And all of you that are restaurant owners, if you haven't thought about raising your prices, you might as well. This is a good time.
Well, I think all of them have to.
So
here's a question for Jen. With the prices increasing, and Johnny Ornales, El Mariachi in Guadalajara, question for you as well. With the pricing increasing, Jen and Johnny, at restaurants, and we understand it has to go up, and we're willing to pay higher prices because your food is that good. Is it a safe statement that does not mean your profit margins have gone up? And is it also a safe statement that perhaps the profit margins have gotten even tighter because the cost of goods are increasing at a clip much higher than what a consumer is willing to pay from a higher price standpoint on a menu? I mean, because right now we still have in our mind, I'm only going to pay X amount of dollars, and I'm willing to pay more, but for like a sandwich, like lasagna, whatever it may be. But cost of goods are going higher than what inflation expectation is what I'm saying.
That could be. I think that the initial change in pricing is generally reactions to hard costs.
Explain that.
We suddenly don't have enough chips to put in all the cars to get the cars out. So now when you go to buy a car, you're paying extra because that's one of only 10 cars that the dealership's going to be able to sell in the next 6 months, because it's 6 months before they get their next supply of chips, and they still got to pay 6 months worth of bills. And so those are relations to actual cost changes. As this rolls through, you get into inflation expectation, and it's a real estate show. Let's talk about real estate. Why do people continue having escalation clauses for houses and bumping those prices up? Why are we still 101, 102% above list price? Part of that is scarcity and demand, but part of it is because they expect to need to do that, and they're willing to entertain that notion in a way they wouldn't have been 10 years ago. So I think some of it is sneaky. The sandwich that you get from Subway all the time that goes up 80 cents, you're not going to notice. The restaurant meal that you might go to at a nice restaurant that's more money, you probably will notice. But if it's good service and good food, you'll be willing to pay it. And I find it interesting to see how everybody's going to cope with this. So all of you on the feed that said you're expecting prices to go up, are you actually thinking about doing something different in how you live and spend your money to make up that difference?
Well, the fear the three of us have here in the did we say this is an isosceles triangle, or this is, what kind of triangle is this?
Equilateral.
Equilateral. So this is the equilateral triangle of content. Judah, Quinton, and I are in at this set here. The fear that the equilateral triangle of content has on this network is that people do not go out and spend money on Main Street. And Main Street is the proverbial Main Street, not Main Street in Charlottesville, but meaning mom and pops and locally owned businesses, because of additional overhead. That is my fear. I'm sure that's your fear.
All overhead has to get passed on somehow. You either reduce profit, you either suffer the profit loss, or you pass it on to the consumer somehow. So whether it's the price of a chicken breast for the restaurant, or the pass on from the landlord of the taxes from their triple net lease, there is always some way that it gets trickled down to the consumer.
Daniel Pettit over on one of the Facebook pages for Quinton, Judah, and I, people are going to spend more time eating home versus going out to restaurants. They're going to have to curb spending somehow. That's my fear. That is very much my fear. And we're blessed to have this plethora of locally owned restaurants in the community. And if we don't go out now and support them now, especially, and in Q2, Q3, and Q4 in particular, after this pandemic is behind us, we may not have as many restaurants that are locally owned. I mean, you know this as well as I do, because this is your game.
Don't you think we already have fewer restaurants?
Oh, no doubt. Dude, in fact, I don't want to, you go anywhere you want with this.
So
You're in the business broker game, right? Are you not?
Let's think of it as a market correction. If we're thinking of it in a more global sense across the area that we live in Charlottesville, Albemarle, and the surrounding counties, maybe we really did have too many restaurants. I've been going out to restaurants again, really happy about that.
Same.
Was at Tableau with a friend last night, and I just was really impressed that they're full. There was not an empty chair in the place.
Now, Tableau, to its advantage, does not have a ton of seats, but also potentially to its disadvantage from a pandemic. The seats are close together, which may make people nervous about eating inside.
They've made good effort to spread it out.
They certainly have.
They've made good effort to spread it out.
They took out tables.
And every seat that they have is full. I went by Con Mole on my way. also full. So I'm curious to see, are we just finding, yes, more people are going to eat at home because people have spent the last 2 years eating from home because they couldn't go out, and they're probably not going to reverse course all the way dialing back to how they were. Maybe there is only room for for X number of restaurants in the new reality, and it might be a good coping mechanism for some families with inflation issues, because we were super flush in the pandemic.
And dude, and I need to emphasize this, and I'm not going to let any details out of the bag. This is very straightforward what I'm about to say. The guy not only is a real estate broker, but he is a business broker. You've helped brokered restaurant sales and transactions. Am I saying that correctly? Quit.
Yes.
Okay. And as someone who brokers, Quinton does business, restaurant sales and transactions, have you noticed less interest in some great brands that were marketed correctly to purchase at fair prices?
Well, think about Dirty Nellies, because we watched Dirty Nellies sell, and the price was published. So I feel okay talking about it because that's public information. Sort of an icon in its area, had good staff, well run, inexpensive overhead as those things go, and the business sold for $49,000.
$49K. Now, you're only buying the business, you're not buying the real estate.
Correct.
Only buying the business. Jordan Brunk, who owns Croze Buddhist Bike Bar Pizza on Elliowood Avenue, actually grew up with Jordan Brunk, known that man since the 4th grade, played soccer together. Jordan Brunk, a hell of a goalkeeper. Williamsburg Soccer Club, the Blast. He purchased Dirty Nellies, and he's turned it into a musical epicenter, right? Without really changing a lot of the business model itself, which is frankly what the market wanted, because locals liked how it operated with Gary and Toby at the helm for decades. So that's a good example. $49K for Dirty Nellies, QB.
I think all of these things are adjusting, and some of it can just be sheer exhaustion on the part of the long-term owners that have run a successful business with an increasingly diminishing profit margin, and they have options where they can maybe retire or get out or switch, and they're just going to take it.
So look, the similar thing, the trend that's happening with restaurants, where maybe we're going to see less locally owned restaurants, is that the same trend that you could be, and I'm not trying to put you in a sticky spot, it just literally came to mind. Is that the same trend you may see with realtors? Because I've said so many times on the show, the two most competitive spaces of business in Charlottesville and in Central Virginia, one is restaurants. So competitive. I think it was like 14th most restaurants per capita in America right here in our home. Realtors, I mean, how many? Was it 1,300, 1,200 plus?
I don't remember what the current number is. I want to say it's 1,400.
Like 1,400. I mean, is this a safe comment and a fair comment? Oversaturated with realtors?
I don't know that you can say we're oversaturated, because we've done nothing but add realtors to the market, and they're still here. So, when you take out turnover, we still have a growing number of real estate agents in the market that you and I are worried about and talk about. It is reasonable to expect, much like, well, let me back up and say something differently. If you watched car dealerships across Virginia, there's a lot of them closed now because they sold everything out and they couldn't get more.
In particular, the ones that did not have deep cash positions. The individual unit car dealerships.
And so there are a lot fewer dealerships because although the demand is high, the inventory and the supply is limited. I don't think it would be unreasonable to think that is true for any industry. Do I want to see real estate agents switch careers or go out of business when that's not what they're wanting to do? No, I really don't. And we're working really hard to keep everything moving forward for all of the agents around us. We have a great set of agents in my brokerage and other brokerages, and I would love to see these good people continue. It is inevitable that if there are fewer widgets, you're going to have fewer people. And there's no way to really know what we're going to see this year until it happens.
Comments coming in. So, question from Keith, who I believe is watching on an island right now. Would Dirty Nelly sell for more in 2018 or 2019?
It would have totally sold for more
Absolutely.
pre-pandemic. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, and the other...
I think that's true on all of the businesses that we have brokered that are service industry businesses.
That's my next question. I mean, you've brokered a lot of businesses here.
Timing is everything.
So the businesses that you brokered, had they have happened before the pandemic, you may have had a waiting list for some.
Timing is everything. Let's go back to the cars analogy. The used car that you can sell today, the 2010 Explorer that you can sell for $7,000 today, is the same Explorer that pre-pandemic would have only sold for $2,000. Nothing else has changed.
You know what you guys want to hear? Dude, this guy's dropping knowledge bombs. Daniel McDougall will get to your comment here. Michael Bullock will get to your comment. Jen Finazzo will get to your comment. Wanda, we will get to your comment. Courtney, we will get to your comment. Christoph, we will get to your comment here. My phone is freaking buzzing nonstop right here, right now. We will get to these comments here. I want to throw this to QB. The Ford Explorer that I purchased in 2020, July 2020, during the pandemic, when the dealers were begging us to buy cars.
Mm-hmm.
I have driven it for 18 months. I took it from 28,000 miles to, I don't know, call it 45,000 miles, whatever the number is. I think it's 45. Dude, I can sell this Ford Explorer now for more than I bought it for. And I put 17,000 miles on it and drove it for 18 months. And I can sell it for more now than what I bought it for. That's freaking crazy.
Let's talk about your Ford Explorer for a minute. Why wouldn't you?
Why would it? Why would I not?
What would stop you from doing that?
Well, Judah Wickhauer jumps in on this because we had this conversation, remember? Because I still need a car to drive places. And if I sold it, I would still have to buy another one. And if I bought another one, it would be at market prices that are extremely high. It's the same freaking thing with the housing. And I could sell my house now and make obscene amount of money, but then where am I going to go?
Yes, this is totally why I was going down this road for the metaphor. At some point, when supply is too low, it becomes a self-limiting feedback loop. You don't want to get rid of your low mileage, low MPG car that you didn't notice until the gas prices went up because you're concerned about what could you get into.
What would I buy?
And would you even have very many choices?
Exactly.
And at some point, this becomes the seller's dilemma.
That's exactly right.
So
I would love to sell the Ford Explorer and buy, just throw it out there, any electric vehicle. Let's just call it, for the sake of a conversation, because people know the brand, a Tesla. Okay? Okay? The reality is the Tesla's... Okay, this man's an Audi guy, right?
I'm just saying there's a lot of options out there.
Okay, let's just call it electric vehicle.
Yeah.
All right, EV. All right, I would love to sell it and buy an EV because of the miles per gallon issue that you were talking about. Mm-hmm. But dude, the wait list for the EVs is something that I can't stand. I can't even do because I have to drive my kid to school. Yeah. I have to get to work. I have to pick up my kid. I have to pick up groceries. We have to get around. So this is what we're in. So we're lucky to have it, right?
So I'm going to bridge us a little bit here. So the car that you can't get out of has become intrinsically more expensive because of gas, and you hate that, but it's still the car you need, and you must have it day by day.
That's it right there.
That is now our argument about real estate taxes.
And, excellent segue. And I want to stipulate this. This is important. We're fortunate in that we can afford it.
I'm incredibly fortunate.
You see what I'm saying?
I'm astonishingly fortunate.
We're fortunate that we can fill up the tank, afford it, and we're in a position where we can do it. I'm empathetic, and I know you are because you're a big-hearted person, for those that it's paycheck to paycheck and are not in that situation. That's what I'm trying to emphasize here.
So my concern about, the real estate taxes and reading Michael Payne's Facebook posts, like you instructed me to, was also, I thought he had some really good things to say in there. My concern is when we talk about this tax increase, in combination with the assessment increase. The largest percentage changes in assessments were in the lowest priced homes.
Yeah, Orangedale, 10th and Page.
Not that anybody escaped, but the largest percentage change. And then you're going to add on top of that an increase in the rate per thousand. So let's go with medians. If the median sale price in Charlottesville is $410,000, let's say 400 for the sake of argument, and I'm evening out some numbers, the assessment change alone will be a difference of $400 in a year. If you add the 10-cent hike on, that will be an additional $400. The gig worker we were just talking about that decided they were losing money doing Instacart, $800 a year is an entire paycheck. So one less paycheck a year. I could see that being a really big, real impact on a significant portion of our residents. And something that, is beyond their means to cope with, particularly in a place where there's not a lot of opportunity for them to, we can only work so many jobs, and
That's
you
what
can
I'm
only work
saying.
so many hours.
Exactly. Look, there's a difference, and again, I'm trying to be empathetic. We are in a position as entrepreneurs where we can, how do I say this, have earning potential that is potentially different than a 9 to 5 or 9 to 6. That is, here's your pay. No matter how hard you work, this is your set income. We can choose certain work opportunities that may raise or lower what we make every year.
It's a mix of pros and cons.
It's a mix of pros and cons.
Yeah.
But you see what I'm saying, though? Not everyone has that.
Not everybody's life is designed to work that way, no. In fact, the vast majority of people's lives are not designed to work that way. And there's an amount of risk that I'm allowed to take now because I have nobody else in my household depending on my income.
Well, and there's that risk you're allowed to take is because for years, if not decades, you paid your dues to be able to afford you the opportunity to take those risks and do the spending that you want to do.
Maybe I'm going to go back to the good fortune argument on that one, but nevertheless, if we want our local businesses to do well, we have to have a strong middle class in and surrounding the city. And the combination of, and I didn't realize I had an opinion on this until this morning, and this is only my opinion.
And this is the beautiful thing about the show like this.
This is only my opinion.
It's almost
Please don't
therapeutic,
credit
right?
this to anybody else around me. Although I do want to see all of the things that this is supposed to support happen. I want to see the school restructures. I want to see education be more accessible for everybody across the city. If we continue to impact middle to lower income folks in the city that force them out, we have not achieved the goal of creating access across all of these things, and we have worsened their living situation. One of the folks that I really want to get in on the show and in front of you guys again is either Jen or Ashley from AHIP, because AHIP exists because of this very thing that we're talking about. If you are retired, you're on Social Security and a fixed income, and your air conditioning unit dies, you can't afford a $3,500 replacement. And so AHIP's tradition has been to partner with other local businesses and concerned community members and replace that air conditioning unit, upgrade the electrical panel, reconfigure the front of the house so that an elderly person that can't do stairs can now stay in their home safely, because otherwise they would be pushed out. They'd be forced to sell, and we would probably not love what happened with the property after it sold. More importantly, the biggest way to keep housing affordable is to keep people in the houses they already own. And this is going to make that job that much harder. And in some cases, even with the assessed values being over 400, a lot of the grants and assistance to
They're
keep
pricing
people,
them out.
they can't
They
apply
get the
for it
tax
anymore.
relief.
Yeah, they can't apply for it anymore.
So, straightforward question. Literally straightforward question. people very much respect you in this community. This is a very straightforward question, Quinton. And we'll get to all these comments that are coming in. Would you do the 10-cent tax rate increase in the city of Charlottesville? City Council has advertised this for almost 30 days. They have to, by law, advertise it in the newspaper. That 30-day window is about to expire, and it's going to come up where the rubber meets the road. What would you do?
I would vote against it.
I mean, it seems like a no-brainer.
Well, I'm sure that's easier to say sitting here than it is sitting on the city council.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of competing needs going on, and it's very difficult to find a path forward when everywhere you turn, there's something that needs to be done, and what needs to be done costs money. So it has to come from somewhere. I know there's been discussion about a pilot program with UVA. There's been a variety of ideas fleshed out.
Payment in lieu of taxes, the
Correct.
pilot program with UVA.
Correct, which is something a lot of other public universities have done.
Yep, Harvard's one.
And I am really excessively curious if there are options that don't involve making it even more expensive to live here.
God, I just want to
In terms of
freaking
housing?
give you a hug.
I don't know what they would be. Let's not confuse me with somebody that's smart about these things, because I'm not.
Dude, come on, don't put yourself down like that.
Well, I mean, it's taxes and city budgets and how those economics works is an excessively complex thing.
How many people are on the Quinton Beckham, Keller Williams business family tree with all the subsidiaries and brands? All the various subsidiaries and brands that you got.
How
on
many
your
folks
family tree.
earn money with us? From us? About 140 people.
Okay.
140, 150 folks.
Did you just hear that? 140 to 150 people are on the Quinton Beckham business family tree.
It's not mine alone. There's a lot of partners in that. But yes.
Okay. So that right there says you have valuable perspective to offer. It's not like this is like you shooting at the hip with no business common sense here. You have business common sense. There's 140 to 150 people that are counting in large part, to decision making that you are doing. That is a big company. That is not a small company.
And I have a lot of really smart people that help make it successful. I'm hesitant to take too much credit because I feel like it would be undue, although I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think when we are talking about this specific tax in a place where there's already not enough spaces to live,
Thank you.
I just wonder, is there something else as COVID is receding and the world is reopening? Is there a lodging tax? Is there hotels? What can we do in all the other ways that the city operates that could generate a similar amount of money, allow these things to move forward
Incremental.
without displacing the very population that this school is meant to serve?
Dude, Beckham, you're on point today, Beckham. The coffee is fueling your fire right now. We don't have any more. I'm sorry, we didn't brew the coffee like you requested. Let's get to comments. Are you ready for comments?
Go.
Okay. Wanda says this. Wanda Shank, great comments today. She's the chief executive officer at Full Time Mommy. One of the hardest jobs out there is stay-at-home parent. Okay? We are as middle class can be in the Charlottesville area. She's talking about her family.
Mm-hmm.
We make a budget every month, income in, spending out, and savings. We love good food, but when the budget is up, it is up. We love Mas, Tavola, Comol, and Siren. But as costs go up quickly and our wages do not, we have had to cut back on going out to restaurants.
Yep.
That's vulnerable, real perspective.
And, these are I think, for folks that are worried about it, she's pointing out some really good things that you can do to help get better control.
The budget.
I think part of how we survive this is we stop giving into the idea that this is happening to us with no ability to change it on our part.
Well
so
said.
even if you're we talked about being entrepreneurs and having some extra control over our work life, and that's both true and not true all at the same time. It's also not just limited to us. I think if you're out there in the day-to-day job, please know you have a lot of control. And the very, very first thing is put together a spreadsheet. And every penny and dollar that goes in and out, figure it out. Because she's doing the exact right thing, Wanda, props to you, where they are keeping track of and they know what is necessary versus what is optional. And they're making good choices for their family with every dollar that comes in. The inflation right now might be bad, but it's the volatility that makes it harder to cope with. You can control that volatility in your home life. If you can plan meals, if you can have a budget, if you can keep track of all the things that take $10 to $20 out of your bank account every month without you noticing it, you have an opportunity to make an adjustment and decide what's important to you.
Go ahead.
And I will point out one of the things that we're still needing to work on is childcare, which tripled over the pandemic and I think has not come back down. It's sort of the lumber of home life.
This has come in. This is a great. So Jen Finazzo, her family owns the phenomenal Sal's Cafe Italia. This is in regards to menu prices going up at restaurants. This is a restaurateur. She is a badass restaurateur. Her family is. She is. Menu prices we know everywhere has gone up. And I asked her this question. As the menu prices have gone up at your restaurant, does that mean your profit margin has gone up or has it stayed the same or going down? She says, absolutely, the profit margin is being pinched. The cost of goods play the largest role. And yes, Quinton, the expectation is certainly there and hopefully understanding follows.
Yeah. And in support of you, I've been visiting a lot of local businesses and trying to highlight them right now.
I've noticed that. You're doing a good job.
One of the differences between local businesses versus corporate businesses is how they apply these costs. So I want to say it was in the 80s that UPS started charging their fuel increase fee because there was a spike in gas prices. And then the gas price spike went away and they left the fee because everybody had gotten so used to it. You know, there's a lot of larger corporate decision making in the way that corporations work, where they make an adjustment to a cost, they might even over adjust a little bit, and they create a new bottom line. When that cost goes away, they want to keep that new bottom line. And so one of the big differences when you are shopping with local folks, when you're using local businesses and services, is they tend to behave more responsibly, maybe not 100% across the board, but they tend to behave more responsibly with their local community people, with their customers and their clients, and not continue the pass-through to achieve that extra layer of profit that they didn't need the first time around anyway.
Michael Bullock, we'll get to your comment. Quinton Beckham is on fire right now. Michael Bullock, energy price increases are inescapable. So is monetary easing. Bill McKenzie has got a number of comments that we're going to get to on the show. Michael Bullock adds this: I paid $9.19 for a bowl of mac and cheese last night at Panera Bread with my kids. I won't be going back. I'll be cooking at home or going somewhere else because of the $9.19 price.
Yeah. And my only sort of commentary on that is the next time you want to spend $10 on a meal for you and your family, do it someplace that's not a corporation.
This topic. This is from Grayson. Grayson, I love when you watch the program, dude. He goes, please do not forget personal property taxes are now going to go up on cars because their values have escalated. Yeah. And as you've covered on previous shows, the jurisdictions have to use assessments and taxes associated with assessments based on market value. There is no wiggle room there. So us as homeowners in the city of Charlottesville are going to pay more on personal property taxes, Grayson says. We're going to pay more through our real estate tax assessment. We're going to pay more at the pump at gasoline. We're going to pay more at grocery stores. We're going to pay more at the restaurants we love. And now they're even considering a 10-cent tax rate as well. This is insane.
And what you've just described is inflation.
It seems like a no-brainer, man. It seems like to me that we are on the cusp of becoming even more, and I try to highlight this on the show because I don't think other people are even more of a playground of a rich, homogenous demographic, Quinton.
I don't know, because I haven't looked at that. Over time, if you price people out, then yes, that's what you achieve. And from where my personal desires lie, in there being equity and diversity in our communities and in our businesses, I hope that is not what happens. I think when we talk about things like real estate taxes, and if there's anybody from the city or city council watching, I just want to point out that...
You want me to tag them?
I don't think you have to tag them.
Happy to do it. They watch the shows.
Sometimes, with all the information they're receiving and unable to share with us, there's a lot more going on than we might know. I hope this tax doesn't pass, but it's probably, from their perspective, with all the things they're trying to accomplish and get done, less of a no-brainer than it feels like sitting at this table.
I mean, you're basically being empathetic and you're being considerate and
honest.
And honest. Here's another topic that I want to highlight. We don't even, the school reconfiguration project, $75 million for one school, $25 million for another school. Those numbers are minimum numbers. We all know how construction works. It's going to come in higher, especially as gasoline goes up. It has to come in higher because they're going to have to ship the goods to and from places. So that's going to add an expense that wasn't factored in when the budget was done 2 years ago or the estimate was done a little while ago. So another thing I want to highlight is the educational ecosystem and how people are going to learn moving forward. Do we even know 10 years from now? It's going to take years for these projects to finish. Walker is 10 years from now. Do we even know 10 years from now that a kid or a child, my son, is going to be sitting in a chair at a desk in a classroom learning in this current setting that we have called school? Or and I'm not saying it's the metaverse, I'm not saying it's AI, or is technology going to rapidly improve and digital infrastructure going to improve so quickly that learning at a desk in a classroom in a room with a teacher in front of them is not how kids are going to learn? So from my standpoint, allocating all this money through a tax rate increase is not physically the right thing to do because we don't even know what education is going to do a few years from now.
And I think if I was trying to put on the hat of a city councilor, I would think some of their competing needs is they have pushback against high density subdivisions because people don't know where those kids are going to go to school. The school that I'm at right now is already, quote, air quotes, the school that my kid goes to right now is already overburdened. You can't build this high density housing because there's not room in the school. I don't want you to increase my property tax on top of my assessment because that's unfair and will push out folks. I want a better school for my kid to go to school. How do we make all three of those things live together? And I think it's really easy to pick one and have the right answer, and I still think my answer is right for the property taxes. But we have to bear in mind that there's still these other things we need to accomplish, and that includes more housing inventory, period, hopefully with some affordable housing in there, and revenue streams for the city to accomplish some of its goals that don't push already disenfranchised populations out of the city again.
Daniel McDougall, giving you some props. It's hard to generalize overall economic issues based upon Charlottesville since we've had an inordinate amount of disposable income compared to other markets.
We do.
This holds true with real estate as well. When a 650 square foot home in Belmont can sell in the $600,000 range.
It's amazing. I'm not surprised, but I'm amazed.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I'm shocked for me, but I'm not surprised. Have you considered the multiple people are asking how the increased density that's being proposed for the city is going to change things?
I'm hopeful if you increase density, you do increase your tax base.
That's for you, Wild Bill.
And you do it without having to raise a price to somebody that's already living there. The other advantage to us in times of inflation with increased density is people can be close to where they work and use alternative means, and life just becomes cheaper and you have more time left at the end of the day. So there's advantages to that. Density also is less expensive to build infrastructure. So you don't have to run a 6-mile water line, you only have to run a half-mile water line. It's easier to hook up electricity and sewerage and all of that stuff and to cope with it. So I think there's a lot of advantages to density that I'm a real proponent of, because the only way to start turning this around for us as a locality is to have more housing inventory available to support the people that live and work and go to school here.
Man, no concerns of upzoning and density, creating a speculation type environment with wealthy, deep-pocketed investors scooping up what otherwise would be affordable housing. Wild Bill McKenzie asking that question.
I think that's always going to be a concern. Where there is opportunity, you will have opportunists.
We talked about that last week with some listings on Shamrock Road.
Yes. So there is always the potential, when there is opportunity, to attract the opportunist. And I think how we operate as a government and how we operate to have site plans and do things in an overall plan with some of the form-based code is how we work against that. If we could, though, let's suppose we can build 1,000 houses that are at least moderately affordable, if not affordable. And if 100 of those get built by the opportunist that has no concern for anybody or anything but his own pocketbook, is that still worth the other 900? And I would tell you yes. I would tell you that just to have the opportunity, you will get as many or more good, well thought out people stepping forward to grasp those opportunities as you would some of the folks that you're concerned about.
The real estate investor Tripp Stewart owns much of the Woodlands, has a building on the mall. Totally agree, building nice, affordable housing is so much better than giving $10 million a year in vouchers. Think of how many units that could be built in the city that would produce a profit versus paying current landlords voucher money. Anything on that?
I think you're always going to need both. But if we have more housing and it is in the more affordable range, all of our other issues start to get less.
Dude, you brought it today. Seriously.
Whew. You never know what's going to happen.
I mean, this is a live talk show. You never know what's going to come up.
You never know what's going to happen.
They're intelligent, the viewers and listeners.
It's really interesting when they participate and listening to what everybody thinks.
Yeah, right? It's like this 100-way conversation with people across all these social platforms offering perspective. Any closing thoughts and final words? And maybe we'll get to a couple more of these that we haven't gotten live on air.
I would just encourage everybody, as we talk about inflation, there's Ukraine and Russia, there's energy prices and all of these things that make us feel helpless and out of control. Find the ways for you to exercise control, because they're there. Make the changes that you can make. Most of what's going on right now is transitory and will stop. And then we will see what the real world looks like again. In the meantime, set yourself up to be ready for it and to succeed.
Michael Guthrie, forget drinks. It means food or medicine for some.
Absolutely.
The disposable income on
Absolutely.
LinkedIn. And he also says Elon Musk stock went up because he made it possible for Ukraine to get access to the internet and satellites. That's in part true. It's also in part because people are realizing the importance of, frankly, electric vehicles, as gasoline is such a volatile commodity.
So I did the math on my trip back and forth to Florida. I averaged what would be the equivalent of 92 miles per gallon.
You did?
Yes.
That's amazing. I'm getting on the interstate when I go to Long Island to visit the in-laws. This is a Ford Explorer, new one, energy efficient. V6, basically 21, 22 miles per gallon. You said you're getting how much?
When you took the cost, not this week's gas cost, but when I traveled to Florida and back, and you figured how much I paid for electricity and traveled and all of that, it was the equivalent of about 92 miles per gallon.
Good night. How many extra times did you have to stop?
3
For
times.
someone who has a gas-powered vehicle.
I stopped 3 times on the way down and 4 times on the way back.
So what would the traditional stopping situation be for a gas-powered vehicle?
I don't know. Less.
And then the follow-up question would be still, I mean, it's the sacrifice is worth it. If you're getting 92 miles per gallon, what is the...
It added 45 minutes to my trip.
That's what I was going to ask.
It added 45 minutes to my trip.
Each way?
Each way.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask.
Because the plug-in and charge is not just pouring fuel in. But I was also driving alone. So by the time I stopped and plugged in, the 15 minutes I had to sit there was perfect to get out of the car, find a snack, use a restroom, stretch my legs, talk to people, and wander around and come back. The weather was also lovely for it, so that made it easy.
Kelsey says this question. Daniel Pettit says, great job, guys. Kelsey says, fantastic show today. And she says, the electric vehicle is something we are going to prioritize. It is important to emphasize that the cost of EVs is more than gas-powered vehicles, so you are paying more money up front.
Say that one more time.
She says, first she gave us props on a great show, Kelsey. And then she says this, it's important to emphasize that the cost of EVs is more upfront, so you are paying more out of pocket upfront versus gas-powered vehicles.
You certainly are in most of the models that you're seeing on the road nowadays. What you're seeing in models to come through the rest of this year and next year is much more affordability and much more of mid-range cars. Whereas it's been mostly, when you said Tesla and I was like something other than Tesla, I wasn't just thinking about my snobbery with cars because I'm bougie when it comes to cars. I was also thinking that there's a lot of more affordable options that would fit the bill just as well for people that are really just looking for a standard I need to travel car and switching from gas to EV. But if you're looking, every major brand's coming out with them. You can have everything from your standard run errands and commute car all the way up through the luxury end. They've got trucks, they've got vans. There's a lot of variety out there that I think will help make it more user-friendly for folks entering the EV market.
And to add to this, the president of the Free Enterprise Forum, Neil Williamson, says a Bloomberg study reveals that electric vehicles currently make up only 3% of car sales worldwide. By 2025, electric vehicles will reach 10% of global passenger vehicle sales, growing to 28% in 2030 and 58% by 2040. Daniel McDougall says, fantastic show. Grayson adds,
Thank you, folks.
Excellent show. Stephen adds, this show was fascinating, entertaining, and educational. Thank you, fellas.
Things I rarely am.
Dude, well done today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, Judah Whitcower, well done. Any teaser for the rest of the shows this week that you got?
I'm afraid until I get a confirmation. I'm really hoping I can have Ashley or Jen on, and we can talk a little bit more about what AHIP's doing in the midst of all the things that we've been talking about to really serve their mission of keeping people in their homes that they already have and the multi-generational homes that they have. An excellent counterpoint to some of the things we've talked about today that are negative.
I hope you, for the future shows, come up with another great topic like this, Quinton Beckham.
This was a lot of fun.
The inflation expectation was a great exit or springboard to the talk.
And if anybody wants to know more, Planet Money and The Indicator on your podcast have excellent shows on this.
There you go. Quinton Beckham, guys. Keller Williams. Judah Whitcower is our director. My name is Jerry Miller. This is Real Talk presented by Yes Realty Partners and Keller Williams Alliance on the I Love CVille Network. We're back with the I Love CVille show where we will continue some of this discussion in 57 minutes. 57 minutes with the I Love CVille show. Thank you for joining us. Take care. Dude, you're on fire today. Well done.